A buddy of mine was at a concert in bad seats and started complaining about it via Twitter. All of a sudden the band starts reading some tweets and calls my friend up to sit on stage for a couple songs. They sit him at the piano and during the next song, they jokingly go okay, piano solo. The crowd laughs for a second but then my buddy just starts jamming out, as he plays piano in his band. Talk about dreamed moment, getting to play with your favorite band. Reminds me of an awesome YouTube video from a couple years back. In a Keith Urban concert, this young dude gets called up on stage since his girlfriend was holding up a sign saying it's his birthday wish to play guitar with Keith. For those that don't know, Keith Urban is an amazing guitar player. Anyway, the dude gets up there and Keith hands him his guitar. Pretty much everyone expecting either a choke job or a mediocre attempt. But the dude proceeds to freaking shred. Keith was like WTF. And he immediately calls back the band, who had just gone on break, and they play the full song with the dude owning the all parts including the solo. Just an amazing gotcha moment. In front of provably 15,000 people. Hey guys, today we're looking at examples of people who get demolished because they didn't realize that they were facing a master in r/Askreddit. Has someone ever challenged you to something that they didn't know who are an expert at? If so, how did it turn out for you/them? Share your stories in the comments, as well as any topic you'd want to see next time, or suggestions on new videos you'd want to see. Enjoy. I was out skating in my driveway one day practicing a difficult trick, for me, over a 6-inch tall board. I had it on its side trying to land the trick from only 6 inches in height and I kept screwing it up for a good hour. If I recall correctly, I was trying to land a 360 heel flip and I always had trouble with that trick because I skate goofy to begin with. My neighbor must have been watching because he comes out, grabs the board I'm jumping over and turns it on its side so now it's 2 feet tall. He pulls $100 bill out of his wallet and says if you can jump over the board and land it, then I'll give this to you. What he didn't know, is that I was shitty at the trick I was practicing, but among my skater friends, I was known for my ridiculous ollie height. I'm not very tall, but I could put my knees to my chest in a jump and clear 30 inches regularly. So I took the bet, backed way off, took a running start, cleared the board, stuck the landing and came to a screeching sideways stop about 6 inches from him. He knew he got played and just laughed while he gave me the money. Good thing too, cause I needed a new deck right then pretty badly. My uncle challenged Jack Nicklaus to a golf game in college, without a clue. The humiliation burns him to this day. All I'm hearing is my uncle played around with Jack Nicklaus. I'm incredibly jealous. While I'd never claim I was an expert, I used to be pretty damn good at pool. My aunt and uncle had a pool table downstairs and my parents for a variety of reasons would go over regularly and spend all day there. There was nothing else for us, me and my brother, to do so we just played pool all day for years. Eventually we got bored and saw that he had a book on trick shots so we started doing that for fun. Never really mastered them, but they made for really good practice in understanding how to get the ball to do what you want. So anyway, for my buddy's 28th birthday he wanted to go to a pool hall and invited a ton of people. Then he told it was going to be a tournament, drinks for individual games, and a 50-50 type of deal for the winner. He gets half regardless because it was his birthday, insisted I come and I caved eventually. Get there, first game, they break, and that was the only shot they got. Rest of mine were pretty similar. At the end I just looked at him, told you not to invite me. Found out after that a bunch of them had never even played pool before. Felt pretty bad so I took the money and bought everyone drinks with it. I have similar stories. I don't consider myself a great pool player. I played league pool for about 10 years, starting all the way out by dropping down to a 2 and bouncing up and down getting better over time. But when you know people that can actually play well, you don't ever feel like you're really that great of a player. And then every once in a while somebody wants to challenge you at the table in a bar or wherever, and you suddenly remember that the majority of the population doesn't even know it's possible to control where the cue ball stops. Not me but my brother and best friend. We were in Baltimore for a baseball weekend in 2009 and hanging out at a bar across from Camden Yards. They had a Silver Strike bowling video game. At our local bar back in Boston we had one as well. I'm decent at the game but my brother and buddy were bloody amazing at this game. Bowling 300 games and whatnot. So two dudes are playing this game and drinking. We ask them if we can play when they're done. They ask if we want to play them. We said sure. My brother and buddy destroy these guys. Like it wasn't even close. These dudes said it was a fluke and they wanted a rematch but this time for a round of beers. Again, Annihilation City. But they kept wanting to play, to eventually win a game. No lie, after 13 rounds of beers they finally gave up. They were great guys. We saw them the next day at the same bar and they walked up to us with beers in hand already and said rematch. To this day we still hang out with them whenever we go to Baltimore. And to this day, they have never won. Edit for details, the guys were buying 2 beers each time they lost a game to the 2 guys they lost to, for my brother and friend. The beers were Natty Bow, which is Baltimore's cheap gross awesome beer. I can't remember the price, but they were under $2 a piece back then. They would buy the beers and they'd just start piling up on the table next to the machine so we were all just drinking them. I'd say around 25 to 30 beers between the 5 of us in 4 or 5 hours. Tab was probably $60 for beers but we were there all night getting wings and a million apps so we all just paid the tab anyways. My office announced a laser tag team building event, 2 weeks after I played in the laser tag, Ultra Zone, National Championships. Which were an actual thing in 1997. Edit, sigh. No, this is not a How I Met Your Mother reference, which I have to specify every time I talk about it. I was never of any competitive laser tag level. However, my family used to stay at this hotel/resort thing every year around Christmas and part of the package was wristbands for unlimited laser tag. My sister and I would go down when they opened in the morning and play until they closed at night. We learned the ins and outs of that room so well and got to competing on various things like who could keep their accuracy highest. My favorite was a challenge to only knife people. You could only shoot someone if you place your gun against their vest. We weren't amazing but it was always fun to get a big group of kids come in and talk trash so we would offer to 2v10 them and just absolutely destroy them. I did this but to my stepson. I'm not big on reliving past glories to my kids but I was on a Laser Quest national team in the 90s and so friends set up a Laser Quest and I started smack talking to him in heat about how I was going to mop the floor with him. He laughed and was like, "Yeah right old man." We get there and we go in and play and I'm not trying that hard but my favorite thing to do always has been and always will be breaking up the people that team up cause it's supposed to be a solo game so what I do is get in the middle of them and after a few times of them all being shot they usually split up or leave. We get out of the game and not only am I in first place but I have double that of second place, who was one of the other parents in our group. Look on the kid's face was priceless. Not a physical challenge but I sell building materials for a living, think Home Depot but for guys that build skyscrapers and stadiums. There has been many occasions where an old man with zero construction knowledge tries to lecture me on what I do for a living. My favorite, I'm going to get my lawyer to talk to you because you clearly don't know what you're talking about. Cool, so you'll pay someone to call me, so I can read a contract provision off the screen, which I'm doing for you for free right now. Whatever dude. When working as a teacher I beat a lot of students in Pokemon battles, cause they didn't think of me being like 15 years ahead of them in fighting experience. Noobs. This is how I trounce my younger siblings at Smash Brothers every game really. Fucking teenagers, think they're hot shit, no way their old ass big bro is gonna beat them this time. I have been playing since you were a baby. Oh you got a new game, cool. I played something a lot like it on a PlayStation with potato graphics. Get wrecked. Fuck my little nephew is such a poop, bragging about how good he is at Smash Brothers. He challenged me to a 1v1, and I stomped him as Jigglypuff. He still brags, just not to me anymore. Yeah, my friend's 8-year-old son was trying to challenge to smash all the time on the Switch. When I finally agreed, my friend leaned over and said don't take it easy on him, and I destroyed him with young Link in the pink outfit. I don't even think he got a hit in once in 3 stock. I truly believe video game smackdowns are a good parenting tactic. A neighbor on my block in Brooklyn challenged me to a pizza bake-off. I recently catered pizza for my daughter's school and word got around the neighborhood my pizza was pretty darn good. My first thought was, this guy is a Brooklyn native, my pizza will be poop compared to his. But there was something about him bragging that I couldn't resist the challenge. He talked up how pizza was in his blood, how his dad ran the pizza place around the corner years ago. I remained silent and let my skills answer for themselves. I got a buddy to let us use one of Baker's Pride ovens at his restaurant. We even had total strangers try our pizzas. Every last person chose my pizza over his. I never mentioned to him that I've worked in pizza places almost every day for the last 30 years. I never mentioned that when I'm not working at a pizza place I'm making pizzas at home at least once every 2 days. I never mentioned that at 9 years old I knew that I wanted to be a pizza man. Here I am 45 and getting ready to start my own pizza business. You go. You crazy pizza man. I once went to a museum with my sister and her friend, who I hadn't met before. We got to the Greek art bit and her friend started telling me how she was super into Greek myth, and I thought that was cool, because I was, unbeknownst to her, doing a master's in it at the time and also keeping a blog of myth retellings, which was pretty popular, and it was a relief to have something in common with this stranger. She then got weirdly haughty and told me she probably knew more myths than I did. So, being polite, I didn't challenge her on it and just asked her to tell me her favorite, so that we could have a conversation about it. She proceeded to tell me the myth of Daedalus and the Minotaur. I asked her how she'd heard of that one, because it's fairly obscure. She told me she'd read it on a viral blog post on a blog about mythology. It was my block. My landlord tried blaming me for damage to the kitchen cabinets but didn't know that I'm in construction and I'm very familiar with home building codes. They placed the cabinets too close to the stove and the glue that held the laminate had melted. My old landlord tried to screw me over on our security deposit when we moved out after 10 years. Put a ton of questionable stuff on the bill, missed the window for providing receipts by a few days, and only had quotes for work that he never eventually got done. I'm not a lawyer, but my work life is all focused on telecom regulation and contracts. I also have a degree in history with a focus on legal history in some areas. So it was easy enough to get a basic handle on the state and local laws around this stuff as well as pull up case law. We had a couple back and forth interactions over email when I finally responded with each place where he fucked up, giving him detailed references to the laws in question and how they'd been interpreted by local courts. Also pointed out that some of the things he was doing were pretty clearly being done in bad faith, and that if I was able to demonstrate that in small claims court, where he can't bring a lawyer, he'd potentially be liable for triple damages. He emailed me back the next day saying he just wanted to move on and not pursue the claims anymore. Stupid thing is, this was all over a couple $1,000s. He ended up selling the place for about $1.3 million, which was a nice $900K increase from when he bought the place in the 90s. Asshole. I know so many developers, property owners, landlords, etc. that think they are some kind of genius for having been born at the right time. I lived in New York City, where a lot of these people made purchases when land was dirt cheap in the 80s and ballooned 10x value in only a couple decades. They don't realize it was all luck/circumstances well beyond their control. They seem to believe they personally did something to make this happen. They're the most entitled people I've ever dealt with. It's just the typical shit where they completely ignore price tags. Yeah, Gramps. I would buy a large property as an investment too if it costed a quarter and a polywhack. Not really a you got owned moment, but in college my buddies and I always got the new fighting game when it came out and would put in a couple 100 hours or so on it, basically dicking around with it, in online or practice mode, before dropping it. But during that time we'd have fight nights couple times a week where we'd all get together at someone's place and duke it out. Loser switches controllers. It's not like I never won, but I was always just middle of the pack, and after 2 years of this literally no one would consider me to be some fighting game wizard, quite the opposite if anything. Then, for the first time ever, the group decided to pick up a 3D fighter, instead of a 2D one, Soul Calibur 3 I think. And unknown to anyone in our playgroup, I'd grinded Soul Calibur I for 10 hours a day, every day, for 3 to 4 years. Against 5 people who were doing the same and were just as good as me. It honestly wasn't even fun. After the first half hour they were playing with 200% health while I was playing with 50%, picking random character select, and I still hadn't passed the controller once. And thus it was tacitly agreed that we would all play 2D fighters from then on. Good on you for being modest about it. I'm not much a competitive person either, and will often make it easier for my opponent to win if I'm beating them that bad, unless they talk trash prior. Camped out for tickets to the Phantom Menace. Guy in a group behind me challenged everyone to Star Wars Trivial Pursuit for money. It got to my first turn and I ran the board and won without anyone else getting to go. I felt bad, so I didn't even take his money. He still accused me of having memorized the cards to cheat. Nope, just seen the original trilogy dozens of times all my life. What are the tastier questions that came up? I like to think I'm on your level due to the same experience. But do I? A group of my friends sat down to play this way back when. Being as we were all Star Wars nerds, we figured whoever got to go first would win. I ended up getting to go first and was running the board, like we expected would happen. On my last question for the win I got what was the name of the soup Yoda made when he met Luke. I had no clue. None of us did. I lost my turn and the next guy to go ran the board. There aren't many questions in that game I can't answer, but that was one of them. I'll never forget that happening. Chess. I'm a chess master. I think when people hear that they're like, oh, he's really good at chess. But what it means is that I've played in international tournaments and beaten other masters, and some governing body has given me a title. Anyway, I get challenged a lot by friends who think they're pretty good. What they don't realize is that your average pretty good player is getting destroyed by your average tournament player. And your average tournament player is getting destroyed by a master. I had a friend whose scores didn't align with his skill, and he beat a master once and then never played competitively again. Said he'll never ever do better than that. He still plays with the old men at the mall almost every day. Imagine being so good at something that beating you is a career-ending milestone for some people. He was the last boss of life for these people. After that, it's only freer roam. That's all we have for today. Hope you enjoyed the video. Thanks for popping by to hear some stories from the internet. Like, share, subscribe if you want to. You know you want more. Winking face. Cheers and goodbye for now.